please.
Yeah, Commissioner.
All right, we're back in session. Jason?
All right. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You look amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Not on death's door.
Oh, good.
So over the last few years, as you know, the commissioner and clerks have really tried to streamline the budget process so you don't have to come in multiple times. So we work together. So you're presenting this budget really to the clerk, but I invite the commissioners here so that they know what's going on, so you don't have to explain to them too.
Okay.
Down the road, and I think you'll appreciate that
Absolutely.
exponentially today.
Yes.
If you're not feeling well. So just introduce yourself and then run through the highlights of your budget,
Okay.
any changes that you want to make, and any upcoming needs that you think you have.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, perfect. Evie McCurry, adult probation and pretrial. So in the A budget, there are a couple changes. I spoke with Ryan Belknap, actually brought it to my attention when he was doing the job families, that the chief probation officer position and the section supervisor officer position was implemented at the same time in conjunction with juvenile probation. So when the previous director and Matt Olson created these, it was so that we would have our chain of command, so that we would start establishing that, and they were done at the same time. I'm not sure what happened in talking with Ryan when he went back through files. He wasn't quite sure what had happened either, but ours is a pay grade below juveniles. I did end up submitting to Ryan and Josh an updated job description of what the chain of command was, and he does have those. So for this, really for consistency, the jobs aren't different from what juvenile probation does with their chain of command with chief of probation officer and section supervisor. I am asking if we can bring up the chief probation officer from 14 to 15. Again, that's consistent with juveniles. So that would take it from $59,884 to $64,356. So that's an increase of $4,472. And then for the section would go from a 13 to a 14, $59,176 to $69,610 for an increase of $2,434 overall. So, and again, that's to be consistent with those positions that were put in at the same time. The other thing that we have is, I just kind of want to give you a heads up on what we're doing with Rob Nelson's position. We did have a PO that retired and took out, was paid out all on his vacation and sick, and he was one of those that was maxed out at both. So the 700 and whatever hours and the 200 hours. So that's left us kind of struggling until October. I'm doing the best I can to make it work until then. I'll tell you, it's been extremely stressful. I've had to take on a caseload because we've divided his caseload up amongst the other probation officers. We've got domestic violence court, and that's a very high volume court, and so I didn't want to give that case more, so it's really split it between just 3 other probation officers. So we're doing the best we can with that to hold off. I'm going to continue to do that because we're making it work right now, but I'm just hoping we can wait till October. But that's just so I'm putting it out there that we are trying our best with that. However, I could come and bug you before then. I'm going to try not to. That's really it for the A budget.
On A budget, we had talked about an on-call policy.
Yes.
Have you looked any more at, because you were one of the departments that would affect?
Yeah.
There's no money budgeted in here for this. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I don't know, because I know that I've been in on all those meetings, and it seems to be kind of, from what I gathered, we haven't really nailed down what the policy or the process would be for somebody like us, because it's not quite law enforcement. It's almost like you're sitting there waiting for something to happen. So when we had those meetings with Ryan, it was kind of unclear as to where we would fall in with that, even with like GPS, or if somebody were to get called to do something that may only take 5 minutes, like look somebody up, you know, whether or not they're being supervised from dispatch, might call, and it might be a literally 5-minute call where you log in and see if they're on probation. So we hadn't nailed down from the last time we left the meeting what that process would be. So I'm not 100% sure on what we would need yet with that, just because that hasn't been solid.
Okay. I'm not sure how the board wants to address the on-call. Right now, the policy is that employees would have 1 hour of on-call compensation at the regular rate of pay if they're on call. And then if they get called in, they get called in. So, do we want to do this as a follow-up and just invite those departments? Do you want us to try and put together projections, working with departments for the clerk's recommendation?
Currently, right now, we're flexing time. I don't know if that matters, but just so you know, that's what we're doing now, is just flexing throughout the week. My POs hardly ever go into comp time. Some weeks they do. We stay well below, if they do, even 10 hours. So if that ends up happening that they do get comp time, it's significantly low, but that's how we're running it now. But I try to, my biggest thing is to flex that during the week.
And I think that part of this, we've kind of blown out of proportion a little bit. That, just like you're doing, you know your employees, and you know how you can adjust here and there a little bit, and that's how the office functions, and it functions well.
Well, and another thing we do is I do require, if they do get called on call, I created a work log, so it shows what time this happened, how long they worked on it. I can go back and verify that through, I know how long it takes to do an affidavit, I know how long it takes to do these certain things. So I require that in conjunction with their time that they submit.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we're at with that,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, we've written up some stuff, but we haven't really come to a conclusion.
I just didn't know, I can bring it up with the departments and we can
Yeah.
talk about it and then address it. Will that work?
Yeah, and
Perfect.
and in this meeting, I just assume that it's just like you just said, I don't know for sure, and we're not developing a policy in this meeting.
Right,
Right.
Yeah.
perfect. Okay.
I have a question for you. I'm looking at her health insurance and her workers' comp, and both of them show significant increases over previous years. Is there a reason why?
We did have, we may have been undercharging on the workers' comp. They may have changed rates because those change every year.
Okay.
So I can look into that a little bit more. And then as far as health insurance fluctuates on how much reserves we use to what we charge the departments.
Okay. And the reason I asked that is I just spot checked 3 or 4 others, and there were some that had big jumps like that, and there were others that didn't. It didn't appear to be any consistency, so I'm just asking as to what you're doing to get that, or why, or.
And we can look at those. What we do is we add the number of employees and take it times whatever that annual rate is for the health insurance and what we charge the departments. And that's what that number is. And then workers' comp
Okay.
just fluctuates on how many claims we've got, what the state sets the rate at,
Okay.
and all of those
And health insurance
items,
is gonna go up.
right?
9.5 is what was talked about. We're actually gonna do the final vote next month.
Well, we're self-insured, so ours totally is dependent upon actual claims, but if they're anticipating,
But that's
roughly
the
10% on
stop,
all the stuff, stop loss.
stop loss may go up.
Oh, that'll be big.
That's,
Okay,
but
so does Ryan have that when we do his budget?
he won't, because we're gonna vote on it next month.
Okay,
I thought
So
we'd
we'll
vote
just
on
have to
it.
work with him leading up to.
okay, I'll make
We
that
can
note then.
call and talk to him a little bit, but anyway.
So that's pretty much, that's it for my A budget. any of the A budget change. For B, not a huge difference. One of the things that I am asking for is on education. I think I asked for a little bit more than I did last time. My probation officer that retired was the one that held the high liability certification to bring our high liability training in-house. That's a little bit more expensive of a certification, firearms, ARCON, tasers, that kind of thing. And so I do have a PO that's wanting to get that high liability certification, which would be hugely beneficial even to not only other counties even could take part in that, but we could provide then some more training opportunities even in conjunction with the sheriff's office. So our POs, that specific PO would have the same certification as the trainers out at the sheriff's office. So that would give a little bit more freedom to them to schedule those trainings as well. The only other thing is the capital. I did ask for some funds for our taser upgrades and then to get new vests. Our Kevlar is expired. So right now when we're out in the field, it's a little nerve-wracking because we do not have up-to-date Kevlar. We did go through, I did get 3 different quotes for that. This uniforms to gear quote that I included is actually, and that's in the price that I am asking for, that's actually where the sheriff's office goes through. So we did end up looking at a local, looking at a completely, like a, it was like a warehouse, like a ballistics warehouse. We looked at that, and then we looked at this uniform to gear, and they were a little cheaper. So for all of my POs to have updated Kevlar is the $3,058, and then for our taser upgrades, right now we have 2 carrying tasers and 2 that are looking to be certified. So with bringing everybody up to date, we actually only have 1 that is functioning. So the rest, when they're going out, only 1 taser is actually functioning. I particularly feel a little more passionate towards getting some non-lethal options when we're out in the field. I think it's going to be a lot more, it makes me feel better to have those non-lethal options rather than if something goes down, the only protection you have is a firearm, which we know brings a whole bunch of investigation and crazy things that I would like to avoid in my career. So, I mean, it happens, but I would like to have, you know, these updated non-lethal options available to them. And so they are spendy. They are the $5,823.43 for all of the taser upgrades and the cartridges for that. I will say, even though I am asking for it, I have about 6 grants right now that I've researched to see if we would qualify for any of those for equipment. So there's 2 that I think we have a pretty good shot. The other 4 might be more towards law enforcement, but my assistant and I have been digging like crazy to see what we can find that is out there. I've reached out to some other counties to see if they've worked with any specific places that offer grants for probation officers too. So community protection grants. And I have talked with Nancy too. She sent me some as well.
Well, if we can go ahead and throw the 9,000 in here, and then if you get any grants between now and when we finalize the budget, we can just take those dollars out.
Okay. And I want to continue to, you know, I start, and Commissioner Huff knows this because I start generating all these grand ideas in my head. And so once I started looking at these grants, I started seeing like, oh, we could do this, and we could implement this, and we could do this. So there's a lot of options. We just need to find the ones that fit us. So.
How many updated tasers is this for this roughly $6,000?
This would be for all of them. So, well, no, this would be for 3. So we would have 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does this does this match the tasers that you have? So it's not like a complete system revamp, it's just.
Well, they get upgraded every so often, and so like the ones that we have now, they won't support the software, so they can't update them, so there is a brand new software, but it's usually like, I think these are about 5 years old that we
Okay.
have now, so it's a significant amount of time.
And then do you need new holsters and stuff?
That
Like
includes
fit?
all in
That
this,
includes-
so
okay.
that's all of your cartridges, short and long range, and that's all the holsters as well.
Okay, all right. I just remember talking to the
Yeah.
jail about that and how you can't just do one or two, it's.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
And then how many vests are you talking?
6.
Well, it never hurts, even if you're looking at grants, to have this in there if there's a match or something, so.
Yeah. That's about all I have.
On those grants, that's a good point. On those grants that you were looking at, are there matches on those, or is it 100% funded?
Well, the ones I'm looking at would be 100% funded. I think the lowest one I found was 25,000.
Sometimes the sheriff has, when they get their bulletproof vest grant, that's a 50/50, but much better deal.
Yeah, they do a lot. This one that I specifically look at, that actually Nancy had sent to me, this one was centered around a community protection. So it seemed like we fit a little bit better than just the law enforcement. It was about resources in the community, going out and being involved in the community. So I think it just depends what kind of grant it is. It's not specific to cops.
Mhm.
So it said equipment. I'm going to say vests or equipment. I don't know if the grant's going to agree with that, but that's what I'm going for.
Perfect. I don't have any other questions on that one.
Nope, that's good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like it's lunchtime.